Marcus wiped the grease from his hands as the old mining transport shuddered to life. The engine coughed like an elderly man with lung problems, but it would hold together long enough to get the ore shipment to the orbital station. He had been working as a mechanic on Kepler 442b for 3 years now, fixing everything from atmospheric processors to cargo haulers. The pay was decent, and the isolation suited him fine after his messy divorce back on Earth. The mining colony of New Haven was small, housing only about 200 souls who had come to extract rare metals from this distant world. The planet itself was beautiful in a harsh way, with purple skies, twin moons, and crystalline formations that jutted from the ground like frozen lightning. Most colonists stayed close to the settlement, but Marcus often ventured out to salvage parts from crashed ships or abandoned mining equipment. On this particular morning, young Zara Chen burst into his workshop, her face flushed with excitement and fear. The 10-year-old was the daughter of the colony's chief administrator, and she had a habit of exploring places she shouldn't. "Mr. Marcus, you have to come with me right now," she said, tugging on his sleeve with surprising strength for such a small person. Marcus looked down at her, noting the dirt on her clothes and the wild look in her eyes. "Slow down there, kid. What's got you all worked up?" "I found something in the old caves near the northern ridge. Something big and alive, but it's hurt really bad." Zara's words tumbled out in a rush. "It's making these awful sounds, like it's in terrible pain." Marcus frowned. The northern ridge was off-limits to colonists. The area was unstable, with frequent rock slides and dangerous gas pockets. "Zara, you know you're not supposed to go there. Does your father know where you've been?" "No, and you can't tell him," she said quickly. "But Mr. Marcus, this thing, whatever it is, it needs help. I think it's dying." Something in the girl's voice made Marcus pause. Zara was imaginative, but she wasn't a liar. If she said she found something alive out there, she probably had. The question was what kind of creature could survive in those caves. "Describe what you saw," he said, setting down his tools. Zara took a deep breath. "It's huge. Maybe as long as our main building. It has scales that shimmer like the crystals. But they're all dull now. And wings, Mr. Marcus, enormous wings. But one of them is twisted wrong. There's this metal thing stuck in its side, and there's this green stuff leaking out." Marcus felt his skepticism wavering. The girl's description was too detailed, too consistent to be made up. "You said it was making sounds?" "Yes. But not like any animal I've ever heard. It sounds almost like singing, but sad. Really, really sad." Zara's eyes filled with tears. "I tried to get close, but it saw me and made this rumbling noise. It didn't try to hurt me, though. It just looked at me with these ancient eyes, like it was asking for help." Against his better judgment, Marcus found himself reaching for his toolkit. He was good with machines, but he had some basic medical training from his time in the Earth Defense Corps. Maybe he could at least assess the situation. "If we're going to do this, we do it right," he told Zara. "We take medical supplies, some food, and a comm unit. And if this thing is dangerous, we leave immediately. Understood?" Zara nodded eagerly. "It's not dangerous, Mr. Marcus, I can tell. It's just hurt and scared." The journey to the northern ridge took them 2 hours on foot. Marcus insisted they take the long way around to avoid the more unstable areas. As they walked, Zara chattered about her discovery, but Marcus found his thoughts drifting to the girl's description of the creature. Something about it nagged at him, like a half-remembered dream. The caves were larger than Marcus had expected, with smooth walls that suggested they were carved rather than formed naturally. Strange symbols were etched into the stone, worn by time but still visible. As they went deeper, a soft, pulsing light emanated from somewhere ahead. "That's it," Zara whispered, pointing toward the source of the light. Marcus stepped into the main cavern and nearly dropped his toolkit. Before him lay the most magnificent creature he had ever seen. It was indeed enormous, easily 60 feet long, with scales that caught the strange light and reflected it in rainbow patterns. Despite its obvious injuries, there was something regal about the way it held its great head, something that spoke of intelligence and dignity. The creature's eyes opened as they approached, and Marcus found himself staring into orbs of deep gold that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. There was pain there, yes, but also curiosity and something that might have been hope. "My God," Marcus whispered. "What are you?" The creature made a sound, a low harmonic that seemed to resonate in Marcus's chest. It wasn't threatening, more like a greeting or acknowledgement. As Zara had said, there was something almost musical about it. Marcus forced himself to focus on the injuries. A large piece of twisted metal protruded from the creature's side, and green fluid seeped from the wound. The wing damage was severe, with several of the delicate membrane structures torn. But what really concerned him was the way the creature's breathing seemed labored, as if each breath was a struggle. "How long have you been here?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. To his surprise, the creature's eyes flashed, and images suddenly filled Marcus's mind. He saw space battles among the stars, ships of elegant design fighting against dark, angular vessels. He saw worlds burning and the desperate flight of refugees, and he saw this magnificent being, wounded and alone, seeking shelter on a distant planet. The visions faded, leaving Marcus shaken. "You're not from here," he said. "You're not from anywhere in human space." The creature's eyes seemed to confirm his words. Marcus knelt beside the great head, his engineer's mind already working on the problems before him. The metal shard had to come out, but doing so might cause more damage. The wing could potentially be repaired, but it would require materials he didn't have. And there was something else, something about the way the creature's scales had lost their luster that suggested internal injuries beyond his ability to treat. "Zara, I need you to go back to the colony," he said quietly. "No," the girl said firmly. "I found her first. I'm staying." "Her?" Marcus looked at Zara curiously. "Can't you tell? She's a mother, and she's scared about something more than just being hurt." Zara moved closer to the creature's head, showing no fear. "It's okay, Mama. We're here to help." The creature made another harmonic sound, and Marcus felt a strange warmth in his mind. Images flashed again, but these were different. He saw a smaller version of the creature, barely the size of a human child, hidden somewhere in the deeper caves. The baby was calling for its mother, but she was too weak to respond. "There's a hatchling," Marcus breathed. "That's what you're worried about, isn't it? You can't get to your baby." The creature's eyes filled with what could only be tears, and she lifted her great head slightly, looking toward a passage that led deeper into the cave system. Marcus looked at his toolkit, then at the wounded dragon, then at Zara. He was a mechanic, not a doctor. He fixed machines, not ancient alien beings. But as he stared into those golden eyes, he knew he couldn't walk away. "All right," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see what we can do." The next several hours tested every skill Marcus had ever learned. He used his engineering knowledge to carefully extract the metal shard, employing techniques he'd learned from repairing delicate ship components. The wound was deep, but the creature's anatomy was surprisingly similar to terrestrial animals in some ways. He cleaned the injury as best he could and applied a synthetic biogel that would help with healing. The wing was more challenging. Several of the support struts were broken, and the membrane was torn in multiple places. Marcus improvised splints using lightweight alloy rods from his toolkit and sealed the tears with a polymer patch that would flex with the wing's movement. Throughout the process, the dragon remained perfectly still, as if she understood that Marcus was trying to help. Occasionally, she would make those harmonic sounds, and Marcus began to realize they were a form of communication. The tones conveyed gratitude, encouragement, and an almost desperate hope. As he worked, Zara proved invaluable. She seemed to have an intuitive understanding of what Marcus needed before he asked for it. More importantly, her presence seemed to calm the dragon. When the pain grew too intense during the procedure, Zara would place her small hands on the creature's nose and speak in soothing tones. "It's okay, Mama Dragon. Marcus is really good at fixing things. He'll make you better so you can take care of your baby." When Marcus finally finished with the immediate injuries, he sat back and surveyed his work. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best he could do with the tools and supplies available. The dragon would live, but whether she would ever fly again was another question. "The hatchling," he said, looking toward the deeper passage. "We need to find your baby." The dragon's eyes brightened, and she made an effort to lift her head toward the passage. The sound that emerged from her throat was different this time, a calling song that echoed through the caves. From somewhere in the darkness, a smaller voice answered. "I'll go," Zara said immediately. "No way," Marcus replied. "It's too dangerous." But the dragon made another sound, and suddenly Marcus understood. The hatchling wouldn't trust him, a stranger, but it might trust Zara, who had shown such kindness to its mother. "Just to the first chamber," Marcus conceded, "and you take a light and a comm unit. If there's any trouble at all, you call for me immediately." Zara nodded and disappeared into the passage with a portable light. Marcus remained with the dragon, checking his work and trying to make her more comfortable. He found some of the glowing crystals that provided light and positioned them around her resting place. 20 minutes later, Zara returned, but she wasn't alone. Following her was the most adorable creature Marcus had ever seen. The baby dragon was about the size of a large dog, with scales that shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. It moved with the awkward grace of all young animals, but there was already a hint of the majesty it would possess as an adult. The reunion between mother and child was heartbreaking in its intensity. The hatchling chirped and trilled as it nuzzled against its mother's great head, and the ancient dragon crooned back with sounds of pure love and relief. For a moment, Marcus felt like an intruder in this intimate family moment. But then the mother dragon turned her golden eyes to him, and the gratitude there was unmistakable. She knew that without his help, she would have died, leaving her child alone on this hostile world. As the sun began to set outside the cave, Marcus realized they had a much bigger problem on their hands. The dragon was stable for now, but she would need ongoing care. The hatchling was healthy but completely dependent on its mother, and sooner or later, other colonists would discover them. "What are we going to do?" Zara asked, echoing his thoughts. Marcus looked at the two dragons, at the ancient symbols on the cave walls, and at the girl who had brought him to this moment. An idea began to form in his mind. Crazy and impossible, but maybe the only solution that could work. "We're going to need help," he said, "but first we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here." The dragon seemed to sense his thoughts. She fixed him with her ancient gaze and began to sing, a hauntingly beautiful melody that filled the entire cave. And as she sang, Marcus's mind filled with visions of the past and glimpses of what might be possible in the future. The visions that flowed from the dragon's song painted a picture that changed everything Marcus thought he knew about the galaxy. He saw a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds, beings of incredible grace and wisdom, who had explored the stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. The dragons were called the Ethrani, and they had been the guardians of knowledge and keepers of peace for millions of years. But then came the Devourers, a mechanical plague that consumed worlds and turned them into lifeless husks. The war that followed had raged for centuries, with the Ethrani fighting desperately to protect the younger races who had not yet learned to defend themselves. World after world fell to the endless swarms of dark ships until only scattered survivors remained. Lyrelai, for that was the dragon's name, had been a keeper of the Great Archive, one of the repositories of knowledge that the Ethrani had hidden throughout the galaxy. When her world was overrun, she had fled with her unhatched egg, seeking a safe place where her child could grow and perhaps one day help restore what had been lost. The visions faded, leaving Marcus with a profound understanding of what lay before him. This wasn't just about helping an injured animal. He was looking at one of the last survivors of an ancient race, a being whose knowledge could change the course of human history. "The symbols on the walls," he said, his voice hoarse from the intensity of the experience. "They're not decorations. They're part of a database." Lyrelai's eyes flashed with approval. She turned her great head toward the wall nearest her resting place and made a series of harmonic tones. The carved symbols began to glow with a soft blue light, and suddenly the cave was filled with holographic displays showing star charts, technological blueprints, and streams of data in languages Marcus couldn't read. "Incredible," he breathed. "This is a backup site for their archive." Zara, who had been stroking the baby dragon while her mother sang, looked up in wonder. "What does it all mean?" "It means your mama is a lot more important than we thought," Marcus told her, though he was really addressing the hatchling. The young dragon seemed to understand, chirping proudly and puffing out its tiny chest. But even as Marcus marveled at the treasure trove of knowledge before him, practical concerns pressed in. Lyrelai was still seriously injured, and she would need weeks or even months to fully recover. The hatchling, which Zara had taken to calling Spark because of the way its scales flickered with inner light, would need food and care. And most importantly, they couldn't keep this secret indefinitely. Marcus spent the next week dividing his time between his regular duties in the colony and caring for the dragons. He told his supervisor that he was working on a salvage project in the northern sector, which wasn't entirely untrue. Each day he brought supplies and checked on Lyrelai's progress while Zara played with Spark and somehow managed to keep the whole thing secret from her father. The dragons, it turned out, were remarkably easy to care for once Marcus understood their needs. Lyrelai could digest almost any organic matter, though she preferred the crystalline algae that grew near underground water sources. Spark was more particular, requiring a specific mineral content in his food that Marcus had to supplement with trace elements from his workshop. More fascinating was watching the interaction between mother and child. Lyrelai would spend hours teaching Spark, not just practical skills like hunting and flying, but sharing knowledge through their harmonic communications. Marcus began to realize that their songs were incredibly complex, capable of conveying not just emotions, but detailed technical information. On the 7th day, Lyrelai surprised him by attempting to stand. Her movements were slow and careful, but she managed to rise to her full height for the first time since he'd found her. The wing he had repaired flexed experimentally, and while it clearly still caused her pain, the membrane held. "You're getting better," Marcus said with satisfaction. "Another few weeks and you might even be able to make short flights." Lyrelai looked at him with those ancient eyes and began to sing. But this time, the song was different. Instead of visions of the past, Marcus found himself seeing possibilities for the future. He saw human ships equipped with Ethrani technology, capable of traveling between stars in ways that would make current FTL drives look primitive. He saw cities that floated among the clouds, powered by crystalline matrices that drew energy from the planet's magnetic field. He saw weapons that could protect humanity from threats they didn't even know existed yet. But he also saw the price of that knowledge. The Ethrani didn't share their secrets lightly. They had learned through bitter experience that advanced technology in the wrong hands could destroy civilizations. Any partnership would require trust, understanding, and a commitment to use their gifts responsibly. When the vision ended, Marcus found himself facing a decision that was far bigger than one man should have to make. He could report his discovery to the colonial authorities, who would undoubtedly want to study the dragons and their technology. But he had seen enough of human nature to know how that would likely end. Lyrelei and Spark would become prisoners, valuable assets to be exploited rather than partners to be respected. "There has to be another way," he said aloud. Zara looked up from where she was playing with Spark. The baby dragon had grown noticeably in just a week, already reaching the size of a small pony. "What kind of way?" "A way that keeps them safe, but still lets humanity benefit from what they know." Marcus looked at the still glowing archive displays around them. "We need allies, people we can trust." The solution, when it came, arrived in the form of Dr. Sarah Chen, Zara's mother, and the colony's head xenobiologist. Marcus had been dreading the moment when Zara's absences would be noticed, but he hadn't expected her mother to track her down personally. Dr. Chen appeared at the cave entrance just as Marcus was checking on Lyrelei's wing repairs. She took one look at the scene before her and stood frozen, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "Zara," she said in a carefully controlled voice, "please step away from that creature and come here immediately." "Mom, it's okay," Zara said, not moving from where she sat with Spark's head in her lap. "They're friends. This is Lyrelei and Spark, and Mr. Marcus fixed her wing." Dr. Chen's eyes moved from her daughter to the massive dragon, then to Marcus, and finally to the glowing symbols on the cave walls. Her expression shifted from shock to wonder, to the kind of intense focus that Marcus recognized from his own encounters with impossible machinery. "How long have they been here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "About a week," Marcus replied carefully. "Zara found them injured. I've been providing medical assistance." Medical assistance. Dr. Chen stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her maternal concerns. "To an unknown alien species. Do you have any idea of the protocols you've violated?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "All of them." Lyrelei, who had been watching the exchange with obvious interest, made one of her harmonic sounds. Dr. Chen jerked as if she'd been shocked, and Marcus realized that the dragon was attempting to communicate with her directly. "Did you just—" Dr. Chen began, then stopped as another wave of harmonics washed over her. This time, her eyes went wide as the dragon's thoughts touched her mind. Marcus watched as understanding dawned on the xenobiologist's face. He had gone through the same process himself, the gradual realization that they were dealing with something far beyond anything in human experience. Dr. Chen was getting the full treatment, though, including visions of the Ithrani civilization at its height and the knowledge contained within the archive. When it was over, Dr. Chen sat down heavily on a nearby rock formation. "My God," she breathed. "They're not just aliens. They're the remnants of a galactic civilization. And this place—" She looked around at the glowing symbols with new understanding. "This is a library, a repository of knowledge that could advance human science by thousands of years." "That's the problem," Marcus said. "If word gets out, they'll be treated as resources to be exploited, not beings to be respected. The colonial government will want to claim them as assets. The corporate interests will want to strip mine their knowledge. And the military will want to weaponize everything they can." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. As a scientist, she understood both the incredible value of what they had discovered and the dangers that came with it. "What do you propose?" "I've been thinking about that," Marcus said. "What if we could find a way to introduce their knowledge gradually, make it look like natural human discoveries and innovations? That way we get the benefits without exposing them to exploitation. That would take time, Dr. Chen pointed out. Years, possibly decades. And it would require a very small, very trustworthy group of people to coordinate everything. I know someone who might be able to help, Marcus said. Dr. Elena Vasquez, my old commanding officer from the Earth Defense Corps. She's been working with the Colonial Development Authority on establishing protocols for first contact situations. If anyone would understand the implications of this discovery, it's her. Lyra Lay made another series of harmonic tones, and both humans felt the dragon's approval of their discussion. She understood the complexities of their situation better than they did, having lived through the rise and fall of civilizations. The careful approach they were proposing was exactly the kind of wisdom her people had learned too late in their own dealings with emerging species. Over the following days, Dr. Chen became a regular visitor to the cave. She brought medical equipment better suited to treating Lyra Lay's injuries and spent hours documenting the dragon's biology and behavior. More importantly, she helped Marcus establish secure communications with Dr. Vasquez, using her authority as colony xenobiologist to justify the encrypted transmissions. Dr. Vasquez's reaction to their initial report was exactly what Marcus had hoped for. Rather than demanding immediate access to the discovery, she understood the need for caution and secrecy. She agreed to visit the colony under the cover of a routine inspection, bringing with her a small team of specialists who could be trusted with the truth. Meanwhile, the dragons continued to recover and grow. Lyra Lay was now able to take short walks around the cave system, and her wing was healing well enough that she could unfold it completely without pain. Spark had nearly doubled in size and was beginning to show the same graceful intelligence as his mother. Most remarkably, he was starting to communicate directly with Zara, the two of them developing a bond that seemed to transcend species barriers. "He's teaching me their language," Zara explained to Marcus one day as she sat with the young dragon. "It's not like human words. It's more like music and pictures and feelings all mixed together." Marcus watched the girl and the hatchling sharing thoughts through harmonic tones and marveled at how quickly the young could adapt to new realities. It gave him hope that perhaps humanity and the Athrani could find a way to coexist and learn from each other. But their peaceful routine was shattered when a routine geological survey team detected unusual energy readings from the northern sector. The readings were consistent with advanced technology, and the colonial administration immediately launched an investigation to locate the source. Marcus received the alert on his communicator just as Dr. Vasquez's ship was entering orbit. They were running out of time, and decisions would have to be made quickly. As he raced toward the cave to warn the dragons, he couldn't help but think that everything they had worked for was about to fall apart. But when he arrived at the cave, he found Lyra Lay already preparing to leave. The ancient dragon had sensed the approaching danger through methods Marcus didn't understand, and she was gathering her strength for what might be a final flight. "You can't leave yet," Marcus protested. "Your wing isn't fully healed, and where would you go?" Lyra Lay fixed him with her golden eyes and began to sing. The visions she shared showed a hidden valley deep in the planet's unexplored southern continent, a place where she and Spark could remain hidden while their human friends worked to establish a proper framework for contact between the species. It was a sound plan, but Marcus felt a profound sadness at the thought of the dragons leaving. In the weeks they had spent together, he had come to think of them as family. More than that, he had begun to see the future they might build together, human ingenuity combined with Athrani wisdom to create something neither species could achieve alone. "This isn't goodbye," he said firmly. "We're going to make this work. Dr. Vasquez will help us establish proper protocols, and eventually we'll find a way for your people and mine to meet as equals." Lyra Lay's response was a complex harmony that conveyed hope, gratitude, and a promise that their friendship would endure regardless of the challenges ahead. As mother and child prepared for their journey to safety, Marcus realized that his life as a simple mechanic was over. He was now part of something much larger, a bridge between worlds that could change the future of the galaxy. 6 months after the dragon's departure, Marcus stood in what had once been a simple repair bay and was now the most advanced research facility in human space. The workshop had been transformed through careful application of Ithrani principles, with crystalline processors that computed faster than any human computer and energy systems that drew power directly from the planet's core. Dr. Vasquez had proven to be everything Marcus had hoped for and more. When she arrived at New Haven and experienced Lyralai's mind touch firsthand, she immediately understood both the incredible opportunity and the devastating dangers involved. Rather than rushing to exploit the discovery, she had quietly assembled a team of the most trustworthy individuals from across human space, each sworn to secrecy and committed to protecting the dragons while gradually introducing their knowledge to benefit humanity. The team included Dr. Chen, who had become the leading expert on Ithrani biology, Commander James Torres, a military strategist who understood the defensive applications of their technology, Dr. Kenji Nakamura, an engineer who could reverse engineer Ithrani devices without completely understanding their principles, and Maria Santos, a diplomat who was working on protocols for eventual open contact. But perhaps the most important member of their group was Zara, who at 10 years old had become humanity's first true bridge to the Ithrani. Her bond with Spark had deepened during their time together, and even after the dragon's departure, she could still communicate with them across vast distances through methods that defied human understanding. "They're doing well," Zara reported during one of their weekly briefings. "Spark is getting really big now, almost as big as his mom. And Lyralai says the valley they found is perfect. There are crystal formations that amplify their songs, and underground streams that carry the right minerals for Spark's growth." Marcus smiled as he listened to the girl's report. The connection between Zara and the dragons had proven invaluable, allowing them to coordinate their efforts and ensure that the Ithrani remained safe, while their human allies worked to prepare for eventual contact. The work itself had been challenging beyond anything Marcus had ever imagined. The archive that Lyralai had shown them contained millions of years' worth of accumulated knowledge, covering everything from basic physics to technologies that seemed like magic. The challenge was not just understanding the information, but figuring out how to introduce it to human science without causing chaos. They started small, with improvements to mining equipment and atmospheric processors that could be explained as natural innovations. Dr. Nakamura would spend weeks studying an Ithrani design, then create a simplified human version that accomplished the same goal through conventional means. The improvements were significant, but not so dramatic as to arouse suspicion. Meanwhile, Dr. Chen worked on biological applications, using Ithrani medical knowledge to develop new treatments for diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Again, the improvements were introduced gradually, presented as the result of ongoing research rather than alien intervention. Commander Torres focused on defensive technologies, knowing that humanity would eventually face the same threats that had destroyed the Ithrani civilization. The Devourers were still out there, slowly consuming worlds on the far side of the galaxy. It was only a matter of time before they turned their attention to human space. The weapon systems described in the archive were beyond current human technology, but Torres worked with the engineering team to develop intermediate steps that would prepare humanity for the real threats they would eventually face. New ship designs, improved energy shields, and targeting systems that could track faster than light objects began appearing in Earth Defense Corps specifications. Perhaps most importantly, Maria Santos worked on the legal and ethical frameworks that would govern first contact when it finally became public. She studied the archive's records of how the Ithrani had dealt with younger species, learning from both their successes and their failures. The protocols she developed would ensure that when humanity was ready, The relationship with the dragons would be one of mutual respect rather than exploitation. As the months passed, Marcus found himself changing in ways he hadn't expected. The visions Lyrelai had shared with him had awakened something in his mind, a deeper understanding of how technology and consciousness could work together. He began to see patterns in machinery that others missed, to intuitive solutions to problems that should have taken weeks to solve. Dr. Chen called it harmonic resonance, a gradual synchronization between human neural patterns and Ethrani thought processes. It wasn't telepathy exactly, but it was a form of enhanced intuition that allowed the team to work with Ethrani technology far more effectively than should have been possible. The effect was strongest in Zara, whose young mind had adapted most completely to the dragon's way of thinking. She could look at archive displays and understand concepts that PhD physicists found baffling. More remarkably, she had begun to sing in the harmonic patterns of the Ethrani, creating music that could actually influence the crystalline technology around them. "She's becoming something new," Dr. Chen observed during one of their private meetings. "Not quite human anymore, but not Ethrani either. She's a bridge between the species in the most literal sense." Marcus watched Zara work with one of the crystal matrices, her young voice guiding the device through complex calculations with unconscious ease. It should have been frightening, seeing a child changed so fundamentally by alien influence. Instead, he felt a profound sense of hope. If Zara could adapt so completely to Ethrani ways while still remaining essentially human, then perhaps the two species truly could find a way to coexist. The first real test of their work came when a deep space monitoring station detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of human space. The readings were consistent with Devourer scouts, advance units of the mechanical plague that had destroyed the Ethrani civilization. Commander Torres immediately implemented the defensive protocols they had developed, deploying modified ships with improved sensors and energy weapons. The encounter was brief but decisive. The human ships, equipped with Ethrani-inspired technology, easily defeated the scouts before they could report back to their main force. The victory proved that their approach was working. Humanity was becoming stronger, more capable of defending itself and others. But it also demonstrated that time was running short. The Devourers were closer than anyone had realized, and the galaxy would need every advantage it could get to survive what was coming. It was Zara who suggested the next step in their evolution. "Spark says there are other survivors," she announced during one of their briefings. "Not many, but some Ethrani escaped to different parts of the galaxy. They're hiding, like Lyrelai and Spark were hiding, but they're still alive." The implications were staggering. If there were other survivors, then the knowledge contained in the archive was just the beginning. A network of hidden Ethrani could provide the foundation for rebuilding their civilization while simultaneously preparing humanity for the challenges ahead. Dr. Vasquez authorized an expanded search program, using the modified ships to seek out the energy signatures that marked Ethrani hiding places. It was dangerous work, as many of the survivors were in systems that had been partially overrun by Devourers, but the potential rewards were too great to ignore. The first discovery came 3 months later, when a survey ship detected Ethrani harmonic patterns from a shattered moon in the Vega system. The rescue mission found an elderly dragon named Corvani, who had been hiding in stasis for over 1,000 years. Like Lyrelai, he carried with him a fragment of the Great Archive, containing knowledge that complemented and expanded what they already possessed. More importantly, Corvani brought news of other survivors scattered throughout the galaxy. Some were in stasis, others were actively hiding, and a few were even working with other species to prepare for the eventual return of the Devourers. As their network grew, Marcus found himself at the center of something that was rapidly becoming larger than any human organization in history. They were no longer just protecting a secret. They were building an alliance that spanned multiple species and solar systems. The work was exhausting, but it was also the most meaningful thing Marcus had ever done. Every day brought new challenges and discoveries, new opportunities to bridge the gap between human determination and Ithrani wisdom. He had started as a simple mechanic, but he was becoming something his younger self could never have imagined: a guardian of galactic civilization. The culmination of their efforts came on a spring day, exactly 1 year after Zara had first led him to the cave. Dr. Vasquez announced that humanity was ready for the next phase of their relationship with the Ithrani. Formal contact protocols had been established, the technology transfer program was functioning smoothly, and public opinion had been carefully prepared through a series of scientific announcements that hinted at great discoveries without revealing their true source. Most importantly, the Alliance network was strong enough to protect both species from those who would exploit their relationship for selfish gain. "It's time," Dr. Vasquez told Marcus. "Time to bring them home." The reunion took place in the same cave where everything had begun. Lyrelai and Spark had grown and changed during their months of exile, but the bond between them and their human friends remained as strong as ever. Spark was now magnificent to behold, nearly half his mother's size and radiating the same ancient wisdom that marked all mature Ithrani. As the two dragons settled into their old resting place, Marcus marveled at how much had changed since that first desperate day when Zara had dragged him into the caves. The frightened, injured creature he had tried to help with improvised tools had become the foundation of an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. But perhaps the most remarkable change was in himself. The simple mechanic who had once been content to fix broken machines in isolation had become a bridge between worlds, a protector of ancient wisdom, and a guardian of the future. Lyrelai looked at him with those timeless golden eyes and began to sing. The harmony she created was unlike any she had shared before, a complex melody that spoke of gratitude, friendship, and hope for the future. As her song filled the cave, Marcus felt the presence of all the other survivors they had found. Dozens of ancient voices joining in a chorus that celebrated not just survival, but renewal. The age of hiding was over. The Ithrani and humanity would face the future together, combining the best qualities of both species to create something greater than either could achieve alone. And at the heart of it all would be the simple truth that sometimes the most profound changes begin with one person willing to help a stranger in need. As the song faded and the dragons settled in for their first peaceful rest in over a year, Marcus smiled and reached for his toolkit. There would always be more work to do, more problems to solve, more bridges to build between the worlds, and he wouldn't have it any other way.